before I get into the review itself of the DeVore Fidelity Orangutan Oh Baby, I just have to say something about the designer, John DeVore. Because before he was a big shot speaker designer, he worked as a high-end audio salesman, just like me, and actually at the same store, Sound by Singer, here in New York City. And I think having that background, certainly for me as a reviewer, but John as a speaker designer, having that background of doing hundreds, thousands of demos for people looking to buy speakers or amplifiers or turntables or something, having that experience of knowing how people go through that process, their journey of just buying a product, I think really informs the way he designs speakers. I think he has a good handle on what people are looking for. Not, it's a generalized view, but I think it's really, really helpful. And not too many speaker designers that I know have had that as background. So I think, yeah, I just wanted to get that out right up front. And I think that's one of the reasons his speakers are so successful. Now, as for this speaker, the Oh Baby, which sometimes I refer to as the Babes, because there are two of them, they have that look, that clean look. Now, a lot of my friends have, as a matter of fact, somebody in my building just bought a set of Orangutan 093s. But I mean, I don't know, there's 6, 7, 8 people I know who have these speakers. And I have heard them many, many times, but I have never heard an Orangutan here in my apartment. So this was really exciting for me to get this close-up experience of living with this speaker for a couple of weeks. The other thing I want to mention at this point is there is a part 2 to this review, which is an interview with John DeVore, a really in-depth interview about how he approached designing this speaker and also its little brother, the Micro. And also a little tiny unboxing video at the end of that video. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So anyway, so John did come here, delivered the speakers personally, and he set them up in the position that I normally have my Klipsch Cornwall fours. And that's where I did my first few days of listening to the speaker. And I liked it, but I felt like it really wasn't coming together, so I moved them over to this end of the room, and everything just really clicked. Which again shows that speaker placement and which wall you have your speakers on and all that stuff can really make a big difference. The Oh Babies weren't really coming together over where the Klipsches usually reside, and moving them here was really, really good. And also just dialing in the system and using different speaker cables than I started with, everything made a difference. These speakers are very, very revealing. And I would say relatively sensitive to speaker placement itself. I'm not saying they're extreme in that category. You take care. With any good speaker, you should put in the time to get them just right. So anyway, it's a two-way. It's a vented speaker, ported speaker. The port is in the back. Now, as for the cabinets have a story because they are made in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, literally steps away from the DeVore Fidelity factory. I mean, you walk 20 feet, you're right there. And that company is called Box Furniture. And they make all the cabinets for DeVore Fidelity speakers. And this one, well, the front baffle is birch ply with oak veneer, white oak veneer. It's really beautiful, really, really elegant. No, I'm not forgetting, there will be an Audiophiliac viewer system of the day at the conclusion of this episode, not part 2. Anyway, the cabinet, I think, is stunning. Now, the drivers themselves, well, the tweeter, it's really interesting. It's 0.75-inch silk dome tweeter, and it's actually the same exact tweeter that's used as a super tweeter in the O Reference, the top-of-the-line, ultra-expensive DeVore Fidelity speaker. But on the Reference one, it's used as a super tweeter. Here, it's used as an actual, well, I would call it full range, but a normal tweeter. The woofer is 6.7 inches. It's treated paper. It is made in Norway specifically to John DeVore's specifications. It's a unique proprietary to DeVore Fidelity woofer. So the speaker is made in Brooklyn, and I admit I'm proud of that. And there is a 5-year warranty, and the price, yes, the price is $5,700 a pair. And the stands, which are optional, are $995. Now, John says they are kind of expensive, but the stands are solid oak and birch ply. And you don't have to use those. You can use any stand that's 12 inches high, and that'll do just fine. As for the equipment used in this review, there was a Pass Labs HPA1. It's a headphone amp, but I used it as a preamp with the Shit Egear. I think I'm pronouncing it finally correctly. And also, alternatively, a First Wat F8 power amp. The DAC was a Denafreps Aries. And for the turntable, and also the Oppo Blu-ray player that I always use with that DAC. And the turntable was this Technics SL1200G, and the phono preamp was a Parasound JC3 Plus. As I said, experimentation with the speaker in terms of its placement is really critical. I wound up using very, very little toe-in. The back of the speaker is about 15 inches away from the wall. I did hear bass response down to 40 hertz. That took a little tuning. It was definitely not happening at the other end of the room where the Cornwalls usually reside. But these speakers can go down in the bass, absolutely. The highs are really, really beautiful, just so elegant and airy and spacious, and non-fatiguing would definitely be a word that comes to mind. This speaker is very easy to listen to for long periods of time. I put in way more hours of listening just than I need to do a review, just because I was enjoying the sound so much. As I'm writing notes, as I'm listening, I kept thinking, you know, this speaker's transparency and low distortion, it feels at times like, dare I say it, an electrostatic speaker. There's an ease to it that is just sucks me in. It really, really does. And I'm playing this recording by Amber Rubarth. It's not the one I usually refer to. It's her second Chesky record, which is called Scribbled Symphonies. And I think she used that title because it has a string section, and it was recorded in a church in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, in the space of the church, and the strings was incredible, and her voice is just so natural. She's such an easy singer. She doesn't sound like, it just comes out of her. The music just comes out of her. And her version of the REM song, Losing My Religion, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now thinking about how beautiful it sounded and how it took me back in time to that session, and I was just sitting in the pews watching it happen as she sang Losing My Religion. And just her version of the song actually transforms the song. She makes it her own. Anyway, but these speakers, the babes, the babies, just put me in that space. The imaging just floats free of the speakers. Very, very focused, very precise. And John pointed out something that I would eventually figure out on my own, but because the tweeter is so close to the woofer, the way they're mounted in that front baffle, that's one of the reasons he thinks, and I agree, that this speaker images so well. There's that waveguide that's basically part of that front baffle. It's a very interesting way of doing it. Instead of the tweeter having a faceplate, as they almost always do, this speaker doesn't. It's using the baffle itself as the waveguide. I think that's really interesting, and I think it really, really works. So I also played this Daniel Lanois CD. It's called Rockets. Now, I think this may have been like a special issue or something. I don't even remember how I got it, but it's really, really good. It's just like scraps of things he had just lying around. He put them all together on a CD. And it has some very, very, very deep bass passages that were well handled by the babes. But it's his pedal steel guitar work that is just so beautiful, so atmospheric on this record. You know, he worked with Brian Eno on various projects, and that there's an Eno-esque quality to some of his recordings, like the one he actually did with Bob Dylan, Time Out of Mind. But anyway, this recording, Rockets, if you can find it, is really, really good. There is one track, though, that has so much bass. It's very distorted, and I don't think the good kind of distortion. But anyway, it's a really interesting record if you're into Mr. Lanois. Oh, I have to mention this recording by Dr. Lonnie Smith, his last record on Blue Note. It's a beautiful recording, really, really good. And of all people, Iggy Pop is on the record and does a couple of vocals, Sunshine Superman and a couple of other ones. And anyway, and he's crooning on this record. I mean, you really hear that deep quality to his voice. Really gorgeous. You know, and I'm thinking, if anything, this speaker, the Oh Babies, airs on the side of a little extra warmth. It's a really good thing in my book. It is not the most neutral sounding or clinical or analytical, the furthest thing from that. It is, to use the cliche, a very musical speaker. Oh, and this Ennio Morricone Clint Eastwood record, Fistful of Dollars. Wow, you know, this is like hyper production. You know, there's lots and lots of reverb, but the brass and the singers and the strings, it just hits you in the face. And these speakers just belted it out. They really had some power. But the hand percussion parts, those little things, really, really beautiful. You know, that little crossing over the boundary that, wow, that sounds so good. That sounds like it's really happening. It kept doing that. And I kept sitting up straighter in my chair to just take it all in. But here's the thing. It is a small speaker. It's bigger than a normal bookshelf speaker, but it's not really a floor-standing speaker. But it is about the same price as my Klipsch Cornwall 4s. Well, they're $5,700. The Klipsch Cornwall 4s are $6,600. So in the same ballpark. So I did do some comparisons. And yes, the Cornwalls definitely sound like much bigger speakers. They have more oomph to them. When you play them loud, there's an ease to them. I play them louder and louder and louder, the Cornwalls, and they have no problem. I give up long before they do in terms of how loud I could play it without feeling, you know. But these guys, the Babes, they played well loud, but I didn't feel like I could play them as loud as the Cornwalls. And the Cornwalls 15-inch woofers, yeah, they do fullness and roundness and bottom end just much better. Definitely much better. But the problem for a lot of people with the Cornwall 4s is that they're really big speakers. They will not fit in rooms that would be right for this speaker. I think the Babes are going to do best in small to mid-size, you know, mid-size rooms. And if your room is big, however you define that you can handle a speaker as large as the Cornwall 4s, the Cornwall 4s would be a better option. Again, for around the same amount of money. For me. But of course, the thing that I think the Babes do better is that sweetness to the sound, to that mid-range, the honeyed mid-range of the Babes. So it goes back and forth, is what I'm saying. It's hard to actually declare a winner here. For rock music, I was into playing, I kept doing it over and over again, the first two Pretenders albums, because I am in a Chrissie Hynde mode, and there's something about the way she sings, the way she does rock, for me, is better than any other rock singer. It's just because she just has this power. She's a big woman, and she could just belt it out. Not that I'm comparing, but Janis Joplin was certainly the original, my favorite rock singer. But Chrissie Hynde, she's up there, man. She's doing it. And her and the band, especially on those first two records, I'm cranking it over the Babes, and the Babes aren't complaining. Now, I'm not playing it as loud as the Cornwalls. No, not that loud, but loud enough. As loud as I want to listen, really. And they did it, man. They have that edge, that excitement that they really transmit. And rhythm, they do rhythm extremely well. Hard to sit still when you listen to the Babes when you're playing music that you just want to move. You want to move to the music. I think I'm raring to go with, so Steve, what do you really think? I think the DeVore Fidelity Orangutan Oh Baby is a major achievement. I think John really got it together in terms of doing what he does in a smaller package and just nailing it. And you know what? I'd go so far as to say I prefer it to the 93 in its transparency, in that hinting of it being an electrostatic speaker with that level of transparency and purity. So you really hear differences from one recording to the next, to the next, to the next. Some are, you know, if it's a really nasty recording, The old baby is going to let you hear how nasty it is. It's not going to smooth over the edges, but there is this undeniable musicality, especially in those in the mid-range, especially on vocals and acoustic instruments like guitars and violins and horns. Yeah, this speaker just really connects. I think, John, you did good. So if you really want to know how this all came together, you got to check out the interview with John in the second video of today. And now I can say it for sure. Here is, yes, it's true, right now, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. This one comes from Joe. He lives in Pilot Rock, Oregon. Or is it Oregon? I hope I got it right. Anyway, this is the way Joe's system rolls right now. He has Quicksilver KT88 monoblocks, a bottlehead Moreplay preamp, a bottlehead reduction phono preamp with the integration upgrade, TEAC A2300S reel-to-reel, a Fluence RT85 turntable with an Ortofon 2M Blue cartridge, Denon DN300C Mark II CD player, and yep, Klipsch Forte 2 speakers. Thanks for sending this one in, Joe. Okay, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please consider joining my Patreon for just a couple of bucks a month. Up to 50 or so, you can help really support this channel. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. It'll happen in August. I'm so thrilled with the progress of the channel. I think my work is getting better and better. And it's in large part to you guys who are supporting me through Patreon. And yes, I do have a podcast. I'm slowing down a little bit on the podcast. I'm just doing other things right now, but it will return shortly. But there's 19 episodes up there on my website, which is just for the podcasts. And by the way, if you dig what I'm doing here and you have yet to subscribe, if you have yet to join the 215,000 people that have already done so, please hit that like button and please subscribe and be part of the movement, the Audiophiliac movement. And with that, I can say, as always, thank you so much for watching. And I really do hope to see you back here again very soon. Bye-bye.